We're back again. Welcome back, everybody. Here we are. It is episode 3 of Mr. V's What the Heck is Going On? If you're like me, there's a decent chance that you've never had $2 trillion. It's really kind of an unfathomable amount of money. What we're going to talk about today is, first of all, why did the government do this? What exactly is $2 trillion? Because I can't even really picture it. Then we're going to get into so how do we pay for this? And what is it going to do? In episode 1, we talked about what a healthy economy is supposed to look like. On the dirty whiteboard, we showed that it's a relationship between people and businesses, where people work for businesses and get paid, and in return they go buy stuff from businesses and get products. But we talked about how when the government issued our stay-at-home orders and people weren't allowed to go into restaurants or go take vacations or to do anything hardly anymore, all of this economic activity it froze up, remember? And so the activity that we should see is just not happening. This is partly why we've been talking about unemployment, big problems in our economy. And so the question is, what exactly is a stimulus? Well, a stimulus is what the government does to try to get the economy to come back to life. You know, if you're going to stimulate something, you're going to kind of get it going. And so to do that in this situation, that looks like the government taking their own money and plugging it into businesses and people, right? They give us cash and maybe some other services or goods or products. And what we hope will happen is that with this infusion of cash back into businesses and into people, it will get the economic activity going again. Now we will have money to go buy products. Businesses will then sell products back to us. And in return, businesses will have money now to hire back workers, and now we will get our jobs back. That's the idea behind a stimulus. One of the questions that everybody wants to know is if this stimulus is actually going to work or not. Now, I don't know, quite frankly, and I don't think anybody really knows, but it's certainly ambitious. But the thing is that it has to be ambitious. In order to revive an economy the size of ours, you need a lot of money put back into businesses and put back into people's pockets. Because remember, you're essentially trying to get every single business in the United States to rehire their workers. You're trying to convince every single consumer to go back out and buy the things they want to be buying. It's going to take more than $1 million or $1 billion or $500 billion to do this. That's why we're seeing such astronomically large numbers. The problem with talking about things like trillions of dollars is that we have really no ability to think about what we're even discussing. Another way to think about this is to think about it in terms of time. This website does a great job of explaining that 1 million seconds equals about 11 and a half days. 1 billion seconds is about 32 years. I'm 34 and a half. Holy cow. And 1 trillion seconds is equal to 32,000 years. Think of that. So in order to get our economy brought back to life, we need a lot of money. And the question is, where does it come from? Imagine you had a friend, okay? And you two are like BFFs. You've been through a lot together. And your friend had this thing, okay? Let's imagine it's like, I don't know, a big printer in their basement, and it could print off $100 bills. Let's say that all of a sudden you ran into some hard times and you realize oh no, I don't have enough money to do the things I'm supposed to do. Who are you gonna call? Well, the United States government has a friend, and it's not any old friend like you and I have. Its friend is called the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is a very complicated topic to discuss, and quite frankly, I'm not going to do it justice in this short video. So what I'll simply say is that the Federal Reserve, it's the central bank of the United States. It's kind of like a bank's bank, okay, in that You put money into your bank puts money into the Federal Reserve. Another thing to know is that it works very, very closely with our government, and that's why we bring them up now. It's not technically part of the government, but the government and the Federal Reserve work together to keep our currency and our banking industries as stable and healthy as possible. And so when the United States federal government needs cash, they go to the Fed, because the Federal Reserve has the ability and the authority, something that you and I don't have, it has the authority to literally create money out of thin air. And that's an important thing to know. The money we're talking about for $2 trillion, it's not physical cash, it's digital. It's all virtual. Literally, the Federal Reserve, somebody at the Fed, has the ability to sit down at a computer and type money into existence. Much like I would sit down and type in someone's grade on an assignment and boom, they get those points. Those weren't physical points, that doesn't work that way. They can literally create money out of nothing. And so when we need cash, the government goes to the Fed will create money digitally and then will pass it on to the government. Now, the government doesn't just get it for free. What the government does is the government creates what we call treasury bonds, which are savings bonds. You can Google that if you don't know what those are. And they sell those. Essentially, they exchange that. So the government gets cash and the Federal Reserve gets government savings bonds. Yeah, it's a little confusing, but all you need to know is that at the end of the process, the federal government has $2 trillion more than they did before. The final question is, so where's all this money gonna go? $2 trillion, it's kind of a lot. So how are we gonna distribute this around the economy? Besides it generally going, again, to people and businesses, how specifically are we going to break it all down? Well, the short answer is that it's going all over. Literally, all over. Small businesses, multinational corporations, everybody, it seems, maybe not literally, but most people, most things are gonna get some money because of this. Let me show you what it's gonna actually look like. NPR has done a great job with this nice visual to help people like us kind of track where it's all headed. The biggest groups to receive money, of course, are businesses. One thing that's kind of cool is that the government is going to tell businesses that if they keep their workers on payroll, meaning don't fire their workers, then this money, most of it, especially for small businesses, essentially becomes a gift. If they do fire their workers, then many businesses will have to repay the money. It becomes essentially a loan. All that aside though, one of the things that makes the stimulus most intriguing for Americans like you and me is the fact that it's not just businesses getting money, it's individual Americans. What each individual taxpayer will receive is up to $1,200. There are some cutoffs. If you earn more than $75,000 a year, you won't get that full amount. But nonetheless, most Americans will receive a check or a direct deposit from the U.S. Treasury Department. They say it should arrive sometime in mid-April. If you have kids and you meet the requirements of earning under a certain amount of money, you're gonna get an additional $500 per kid. Now I've got 5 kids. Woo woo! Finally, it pays off. Just kidding, just kidding. But seriously, this is very, very good news for families, especially families who are struggling. As we've seen record unemployment hit so suddenly, we know that there are people out there who don't have the money coming in to pay for their most basic needs. And so this is how the government is trying to help us, at least financially speaking. Now, even though that's a lot of money for some, it's also not enough money for others. The question is, even though the government's coming to the rescue, it looks like, to try to help keep families afloat financially and bring businesses back from the brink, we also don't know if this is going to be enough. What we're going to be talking about in episode 4 is, what can we expect? How long will this situation last? Will we ever get back to where we were just a week ago, 3 weeks ago? Come back for episode 4. And we'll try to tackle that question on what the heck is going on. Thanks for watching, everybody.